Imagine walking into this totally pristine, quiet art gallery.
Oh, right, the classic white box space.
Exactly. And you're expecting these polite antique paper silhouettes, the kind of innocent, delicate craft you might find in like an old family scrapbook or a 19th century nursery.
Right, very genteel, very proper.
Yeah, but as you step closer, the whole illusion just shatters. You realize those delicate black cutouts aren't depicting Victorian life at all. They're depicting sheer, unspeakable nightmares.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking scenes of slavery, sexual violence, and just raw historical trauma. The contrast is physically jarring.
It really is. It's this profound bait and switch. You're drawn in by the familiar, comforting aesthetics of like a kindergarten craft table, and then you're just ambushed by the most brutal realities of American history.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled you're joining us to explore that exact feeling of ambush. Because today we are immersing ourselves in the life and work of Kara Walker.
Yes, she is undoubtedly one of the most prominent, critically acclaimed Black American contemporary artists working today.
For sure. And to give you an idea of her impact, she won a MacArthur Genius Grant when she was just 28 years old.
Which is, I mean, that milestone remains incredibly rare.
Right.
Being recognized at that level, at that age, it really speaks to the undeniable earthquake her art caused in the cultural landscape.
Yeah, it's wild. So for this deep dive, we've gathered a massive stack of sources to bring you into her world.
Lots to get through today.
Oh, definitely. We're pulling from biographical information, critical reviews from major publications, highly detailed exhibition notes, and, of course, deep historical analyses of her work.
And our mission today is to equip you with a really profound understanding of Walker's artistic evolution. We're going to take you behind the scenes of her massive, immersive installations.
Right. And we're going to explore the intense, sometimes really fiery debates her art consistently sparks.
The overarching goal here is to provide you with a fresh lens, a totally new framework for looking at contemporary public art, historical memory, and, the monuments that still stand in our cities today.
So, to understand the shadow Kara Walker casts on the art world, we have to look at where she started. Because that weaponization of innocent domestic materials, it didn't just appear out of nowhere.
No, not at all.
It's a direct response to a massive geographical and cultural whiplash she experienced as a kid.
Right.
She was born in 1969 in Stockton, California.
And her early childhood was spent in this integrated, relatively calm California suburb. Art was just in the air she breathed from day one, really, because her father, Larry Walker, was a painter and a professor.
Yeah, and she actually recalled this incredibly vivid memory from when she was just like 2.5 or 3 years old.
Oh, the garage studio memory.
Yes. She was sitting on her dad's lap in his garage studio watching him draw, and she decided right then and there, I want to do that too. I'm an artist just like Dad.
I love that.
All right.
But that idyllic, nurturing foundation makes what happens next so defining. The tranquility of that upbringing fractured when she was 13.
Right.
Her father accepted a position at Georgia State University, and the whole family packed up and moved across the country to Stone Mountain, Georgia.
And the psychological toll of that move just cannot be overstated. I mean, you have a 13-year-old girl, someone right on the precipice of teenage development, plucked from Central California and dropped into the epicenter of the old Confederacy.
Yes, Stone Mountain, Georgia in the early 1980s was literally a place where Ku Klux Klan rallies were still actively being held.
Which is terrifying.
Totally. It wasn't just historical tension. It was present-day, active hostility. She was suddenly navigating a landscape totally haunted by the Antebellum South.
At her new high school, the hostility was visceral. She was called horrifying racist slurs by her peers. She was told she looked like a monkey.
Ugh, that's awful.
And in a twist that she found completely baffling at the time, she was continuously accused of being a quote-unquote Yankee.
Right. Okay, let's unpack the... Oh, wait, sorry. That's your line.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it's like opening an antique locket expecting a genteel family portrait, but instead you find a scene from a horror movie. She takes that immense disorienting trauma and she channels it into her education.
She goes to the Atlanta College of Art and then pursues her Master of Fine Arts degree at the Rhode Island School of Design in 1994.
And she knows she wants to tackle the overwhelming issue of race, but she's terrified of making art that feels typical or obvious.
Right. She actually decides to rely on drawing as a way to escape what she called the chains of Western painting.
Which brings us to the silhouettes.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the history of the silhouette itself, which she adopts as her primary language. Traditionally in American art history, the silhouette was an incredibly polite, genteel art form.
Like parlor tricks, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Before photography became accessible, cutting a profile out of black paper was how wealthy families had their portraits done. It was safe. It was considered respectable entertainment.
And her massive 1994 breakthrough takes that respectable entertainment and just detonates it.
It really does.
It was a cut paper silhouette mural with this incredibly long, jarring title gun and historical romance of a civil war as it occurred between the dusky thighs of one young negress and her heart.
Quite a title.
Yeah. It consists of black paper figures adhered directly to a stark white wall. The visual language references Gone with the Wind and the heavily sanitized universe of 1930s Walt Disney.
But the actual scenes depicted in those silhouettes are sheer nightmares of sex, violence, and slavery.
Yeah, but I have to push back here. Why intentionally use such explicit, painful stereotypes instead of offering dignified, empowering portrayals? Because she uses exaggerated features, flatter profiles, bigger lips to distinguish black subjects from white ones.
That's a huge point of discussion. By contrasting this polite, refined medium with the messy, violent confluence of disgust and desire inherent in racism, Walker forces the viewer to confront brutal realities.
So she's not letting anyone off the hook.
Exactly. Historical textbooks often sanitize this stuff or look at it with a soft focus. Walker refuses to let the viewer look away from the ugliness of how black people were historically seen.
I see.
If she made the figures dignified, the viewer might feel comforted. By leaning entirely into the grotesque stereotypes, she denies us that comfort.
Holding up a mirror to the historical white gaze itself.
Yes, showing us the twisted, nightmarish folklore of the antebellum South that still infects modern identity. She wants you to feel the agonizing weight of that history.
She is essentially weaponizing the stereotype against the viewer.
The ugliness isn't an accident. The ugliness is the point.
And that weight just kept getting heavier as her career progressed. She quickly realized that the art couldn't just sit passively on a wall as a two-dimensional cutout.
No, to truly implicate the audience, she had to pull them into the nightmare.
Evolve into these massive, multi-sensory, immersive installations.
She once described her artistic process as 2 parts research and 1 part paranoid hysteria. And you really start to see that paranoid hysteria materialize in physical space.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Walker admitted she didn't want a passive viewer and hoped people might even giggle nervously. Is she setting a trap for her audience?
That's the perfect way to look at it. Take her year 2000 piece called Insurrection. She doesn't just put silhouettes on the wall. She introduces colored light projections.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and because of how the projectors were positioned, as viewers walked through the room, their own shadows were cast onto the walls right alongside the paper cutouts of plantation scenes.
So you literally became a character in the artwork.
You did. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it removes the safe distance between the art and the observer. The scholar Shelley Jerensky analyzed Walker's work in the context of 19th century panoramas.
Like those huge 360-degree historical paintings.
Exactly. Back then, they were massively popular immersive entertainment. Walker takes that old immersive device and updates it to capture the aesthetic and social consequences of slavery that are deliberately missing from historical records.
The audience is no longer just observing history. They're actively casting a shadow on it, literally.
Literally.
But if Insurrection was immersive, what she did in 2014 was downright monumental.
Oh, the sugar factory.
Yes. She took on a massive public commission in the derelict Domino Sugar Refinery in Brooklyn. The title of the piece was A Subtlety.
And subtlety in this context is a sharp historical double entendre. It refers to the elaborate sugar sculptures that were historically created by master bakers for European royalty.
Except there was absolutely nothing subtle about this artwork. She built a 75-foot-long, 35-foot-high sphinx.
Massive.
Huge. It had the body of a lion, but the head and features of a mammy archetype. And the entire core of it was covered in 80 tons of pristine, blindingly white sugar.
And that immense volume of sugar was actually donated by Domino Foods, right in a factory that was slated for demolition.
Yeah. And the visual contrast doesn't stop there. Surrounding this colossal white structure were 15 life-size attendant figures, young boys carrying harvest baskets.
Made of molasses, right?
Yes. 5 were made of solid sugar, and 10 were cast in resin and coated in dark, sticky molasses. They weighed up to 500 pounds each.
Just imagine the sensory environment of that space.
Oh, the overwhelming smell of molasses in a hot, unair-conditioned industrial warehouse, the crunch of sugar underfoot. Over 130,000 people visited it.
Which is incredible. The sheer scale played heavily with the ideas of capital, labor, and consumption. The stark whiteness of the sugar on the Sphinx stood in direct, violent contrast to the dark, brutal history of the enslaved people in the cane fields.
By making it so monumental and Instagram-friendly, is she purposely baiting the public into revealing their own historical blind spots?
She definitely blurred the lines between visual art and performative art behavior. A black art critic, Jamila King, noted that the overwhelming presence of white people attending the exhibit, taking smiling selfies.
Taking selfies in front of a piece about the brutal extraction of wealth from black bodies?
Exactly. King noted that the audience essentially became part of the show. Their eager consumption of the trauma as a weekend spectacle basically completed the artwork's thesis.
It takes this temporary thing of sugar and creates a permanent digital memory of our own complicity.
Yeah.
From dissolving sugar, Walker eventually transitioned to confronting actual permanent markers of history, monuments.
And when an artist operates at that scale, they inevitably become a cultural lightning rod. It draws intense praise, but also fierce criticism from across the spectrum.
So let's look at how she dismantles these permanent structures. In 2019, she created Fons Americanus for the Tate Modern in London.
Right, the fountain.
Yeah, a 13-foot functioning fountain directly referencing the atrocities of the Atlantic slave trade. The writer Zadie Smith made an incredible observation about it.
What'd you say?
She pointed out that typical monuments are complacent, they release us from dread, but for Walker, Smith said, dread is an engine.
Dread is an engine. It actively prompts us to remember the ruins and the blood of the past so we don't blindly recreate them.
And she took that engine of dread into even more destructive territory recently. At the 2025 Museum of Contemporary Art exhibition called Monuments, Walker displayed a piece called Unmanned Drone.
Oh, this one is intense.
She acquired a decommissioned 1921 bronze statue of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson. And she didn't just display it, she took a plasma cutter, violently sliced the bronze monument up, and reassembled it into something art critics called ghastly.
The choice of tool there is vital. Bronze monuments are cast to last for eternity. By using a plasma cutter, a tool of extreme heat and industrial destruction, she physically dismantled the pleasing aesthetics of white supremacy to reveal the ghastly ugliness within.
Now, we need to talk about the controversy, and we should explicitly state that we are maintaining strict impartiality regarding the political and cultural critiques here. We're simply reporting the historical facts from our sources.
Right, absolutely impartial.
Because the pushback was massive, and some of the most intense criticism didn't just come from traditionalists defending Confederate monuments, it came from within the black art community itself.
Right. Back in 1999, Batai Sarr, a deeply respected veteran black artist, heavily criticized Walker's work. Sarr called it revolting.
She actually accused Walker of pandering to the white art establishment, right?
Yes. She suggested that white audiences covertly enjoyed the racist imagery she was repurposing under the guise of high art. The criticism highlighted a profound generational divide and eventually led to an entire symposium at Harvard University.
Just to discuss Walker's work.
Exclusively to discuss her use of racist imagery, debating where the line is between exposing trauma and perpetuating it.
And those debates spilled into public institutions, too. The Detroit Institute of Art temporarily removed one of her pieces in 1999 due to protests.
And then there was the Newark Public Library incident in 2012.
Oh, yeah. Employees actually threw a physical cover over one of her pieces in a reading room. The artwork depicted the Ku Klux Klan, graphic sexual acts, and included an image of Barack Obama.
The library staff fundamentally questioned its appropriateness for everyday patrons. But rather than letting it remain covered, Walker actually traveled to the library to confront the situation head-on.
She openly addressed the intense nature of her work, referring to the explicit trauma as a too-muchness.
Too-muchness, yeah.
So what does this all mean? It's like she's a cultural lightning rod. She isn't just depicting history, she's testing how much history we can actually stomach.
Well said.
Walker herself asked during that Newark Library visit if her archetypes expand the conversation or collapse it. When art features this much too-muchness, does it run the risk of alienating the very people it's trying to engage?
This raises an important question.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most vital question about the role of contemporary art. Art like Walker's isn't meant to be universally loved, and it is definitely not meant to be comfortable.
Clearly not.
The friction that her work generates, whether it's from a veteran black artist like Betty Saar or uncomfortable library patrons, that friction proves the work is doing exactly what it set out to do.
It shatters that complacency.
Exactly. It demands critical thinking rather than passive admiration.
It's an intense journey to take in, but as we synthesize everything we've explored today, it's pretty awe-inspiring. Kara Walker took a childhood ambition, filtered it through the deeply traumatic culture shock of the American South, and weaponized seemingly innocent forms.
Silhouettes and sugar.
Yeah, she turned them into unavoidable mirrors, forcing society to look at its own horrific reflection.
And for you listening to this, the takeaway extends far beyond the walls of a museum. It's a reminder that true critical thinking requires us to examine the things we find deeply uncomfortable.
It's easy to consume the sanitized versions of history.
Much harder to stand directly in the shadow of the truth.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder. Imagine if an artist, a century from now, decided to create a massive, stark silhouette summarizing our current era. Based on our digital footprints, our public monuments, and our modern controversies, what uncomfortable truths would they cut out of the paper? And more importantly, would we be brave enough to look at the shadow we cast?
That is a chilling thought.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.